Part 6 is all about locating the source of truth. With components and variables floating around and different objects on the canvas, it's easy to lose track of where you edit things and how to get to them. Sometimes you're going to open up a file that you made 6 months ago and think, what the heck was I thinking? Or you're going to open up a colleague's files and say, what were they thinking, and try and reverse engineer it. So in this lesson, let's focus on locating that source of truth for editing. Navigating larger files that have a lot going on can sometimes feel a little cumbersome, and it's because these files, once you get complicated enough, you are starting to distribute where the actual editable element is, or the editable object is, and what you're seeing on screen. So this example is a concept that I had made a while back for a service that was all about kind of documenting your adventures when playing video games. And here what we have is these layouts that look like I have access to a lot of things, but what you notice is when I go to select them that I'm not totally able to access and change much. This can be frustrating. You're trying to move things around, things are jumping all around on you, you can't really access what's going on. So I just want to give you a couple tips for handling this type of situation. And it's all about finding the source of truth. So over here, if we look in how this file is organized, and we see so many layers in this file, we see there's a design on one page, we see a style guide on the second page, which has a bunch of colors in it and a bunch of different text styles on display. And then we have this components file that's pretty complicated. It's got all sorts of components with buttons and options. It looks like there's avatars and navigation links and sometimes things nested in other things, including text fields and all this kind of stuff. But this stuff is far away from where if I change it here, I can't see what the repercussions of that change are. So this is why finding the source of truth is really important. Now, there's the brute force method, and the brute force method is using the command button on your keyboard and selecting. So that will basically ignore all groupings, all associations, and take you straight into whatever the thing you're seeing. So holding down command, if I just click here, it's got a whole group with an auto layout and dimensions. If I double click, it'll get me in, double click again and again and again and again and again and again. Eventually I'm here. Well, if I just want to hold down command, you can see everything highlighted and I can just select the individual item here. So that is the first way of kind of getting to this source of truth. Next, you might have a need of, I want to remove or add one of these things. Well, for removing, you can double click your way in and just say, hey, we're not doing one of these things or whatever, and you can hit delete. Because I'm going to undo that, I'm going to show you over here in the layers palette. Because this is a part of a component, when you hit delete, all it's going to do is hide it. It's still a part of the original component and it can be shown again. So understanding that once something is a component, that there is kind of no destroying it. It always is the totality of whatever's in that component. It's just, do I see it or not, is what's available. As for adding something here, that requires me to dive in to the full component itself. So in this case, right, I've got this component called navigation selected. So if I come up here, you see that this is a local instance. And over here, it gives me a shortcut to go to the main component. When I select this, it takes me to exactly that component. And you see, as long as I navigated through it this way, I get this return to instance button at the bottom. So why don't we add a new section called Your Games. I don't know why. And then instead of this being the glyph, I'm going to come up here and change it so that it's something different. Yeah, we'll make it the share. We'll call it share games, and it looks like this component has a problem. So what is the problem here? Let's go and select the share icon and go to the local instance. So it seems like some property of the stem isn't quite right. So when I look up here, it's at scale, position 8, scale, position. Everything looks okay, but something isn't quite right. So let me return to the instance, and you can see I lost my path. So returning to instance is really only good for one jump. In this case, I think I just need to select this Command-Option-C and select that Command-Option-V and apply the same styles. So now Share Games is here. And now I have to go back manually to the design page. And there, Share Games has become available, and it's showing up everywhere. So these techniques of command clicking, or maybe I want in on just one of these, and I want to go and make the icon smaller. I can select here, hit K, and make the width 20. You can see it makes all the icons smaller here. That's going to have a bunch of ramifications all over the file. It's finding these sources of truth, and sometimes they're going to be on different pages or even different files altogether. That is going to set you up for success. So this isn't a super long lesson, but I've got this demo file available on my website, so you can link to it and play around with what it feels like to find the source of truth in something a little bit more complicated. Speaking of complicated files, we're rounding the bend towards the end by making our very own mock-ups next.